Okay. Thank you guys for everybody coming. Right here we have Project Bucephalus 5985, and they're here today to do a presentation for us about impact in the off season. We have gathered a couple questions from people and teams. At the end of the presentation, we will have an open question section, and we will have them respond to some of the questions that were asked earlier in a response form. If you guys are ready, you can set your screens up and get going.
Alrighty. Okay, so I've still got to share the screen, but that's good. Okay, so to give the traditional Australian greeting, g'day. We're going to put up our screen now, and hopefully that should come through.
Yeah.
There we go. Okay, so my name's Andrew. I'm one of the founding mentors of Project Bucephalus. I established our awards program, been working with the awards team since the beginning. This is Faith, who served as our impact presenter and awards lead from 2019 to 2023, and then became an awards mentor. This is Elise over here, who has worked with our impact video for the last 2 years and filmed most of the shots this year. This is Zanita, who joined our team to do awards and has been one of our impact presenters for the past 3 seasons. Coincidentally, each of the years we were impact finalists and then Hall of Fame. And trying to squeeze into the video frame, we have Grace, who is one of our writers. Yeah. So bottom line, in short, between us, you should have every perspective possible on the 5985 awards program. And hopefully that means we can answer any of your questions. Also, do please remember this is our first attempt at sharing after Hall of Fame. So please be gentle.
Okay, so for those who haven't met us before, we come from the city of Wollongong, about 2 hours south of Sydney. We do realise that Australia is a completely different planet to the USA and some other countries, but we hope our different perspective can inspire some new ideas that you can take home to your own teams. So the goal of this session is for us to make some suggestions on how your team can strengthen both their impact and their submission, and hopefully give you enough time to implement some of them. Getting ideas is good, but having time to actually try some of them is even better.
Okay, so the first thing we're going to work with is basically your impact culture. So the very first thing you can do is to set or check the foundation of your team's culture. Now, this can be a complex process that comes from inside your team. It actually took us several years to figure everything out ourselves. This is not a little thing. For us, strong impact starts with your team answering these 2 questions. Who are you? What do you want? In other words, you need to set out clearly why you're doing this in the first place.
So this should be clear in your submission. To us, 321 was powerful in their work in education and opportunity in Philadelphia. 2486 took opportunity to Indigenous communities.
The 5985 answer to these questions can be found in our 2025 presentation. From Wollongong, our independent team builds STEM into the heart of a steel city and reaches across the world. We fill classrooms with those that normally miss out. Why? Because that's who we are. We are the underrepresented and remote, the refugees, immigrants, and Aboriginal, the disabled and the dismissed. We are the misfits, the isolated, and the bullied. This opportunity changed our lives. This ties in with the team's mission: create opportunity, transform the community.
Answering these questions helps define your team's emotional landscape, motivation, overall culture, and the way you tell your story to judges. In fact, make sure you mention it clearly. When you choose outreach that accompanies these answers, enthusiasm follows.
Okay, so the second part is dealing with some realities. Now, I am pretty sure you've all heard something about some teams attempting impact award for the sake of winning rather than for genuine motivations, or you shouldn't be doing outreach just to win impact. That is correct on some level. However, so is this. Impact is a competition. Identify gaps in your approach and fill them. Both things are true. So this is our approach. Find your team's foundation, like we were just talking about, and work from it to build enthusiasm. Read the impact rubrics and target gaps in your submission. Create outreach that matters to your team.
For example, 5985 had very weak FTC involvement in Australia. We knew it was a gap, and we were looking for solutions. We then came across an opportunity to get grant funding for 3 new FTC teams. We chose to set them up in special education units, following the unified robotics model that builds alliances between mainstream and special education students. We were able to strengthen our submission and work to our purpose.
And lastly, impact winners are supposed to be role models. Learn from these teams and look for inspiration. Within your own team, set the standard that you want to reach and others will follow. If your mentors and team leadership work to this path, the rest of your team will be guided accordingly.
Okay, so that was part 1. That was setting the foundation, setting the culture. If you're able to do that now, that is definitely something that will help. So the next part is probably our favourite part, theming.
In any other year, the 5985 awards team would right now be occupied with identifying the theme for the new season. Usually this would involve several months of hunting down poems, songs, or speeches that inspire us and using them as a foundation. First for the impact video, then throughout the submission. If you look back through our video archive, you'll see many examples of this process.
We acknowledge that the impact video is optional. However, for us, it's a vital part of the submission. For us, it tells the story of who we are and the true nature of our outreach. It is also incredibly useful in presenting the team to sponsors and the community. We have gained sponsors purely on the strength of our video. It's also a great way to integrate the awards into team culture and is a major drawcard for students interested in media.
Now, we don't recommend that other teams follow this process blindly. It works for us, but we are very aware that it's weird. What it does is show the importance we attach to theme in the impact submission. Now, it's important to recognise that the use of themes does have several pros and cons. I've had a few discussions with teams that are very much pro using them or against using them. So this is our perspective. So don't use a theme in your executive summary. This is our opinion. You don't have the characters to do it properly. Now, a good theme can make your entire submission powerful and memorable to judges, and that's like the most important thing to us. A bad theme or an overused one has the opposite effect. A good theme can inspire your writers, set a powerful tone in your presentation, and tie your entire submission together. Clumsy application of a theme can override the content of your submission. A good theme relates to your team and to the impact you have on the community. And it can be very, very obvious if you just chuck a theme in for the sake of it. Now, you see down there, we've also added the point, no shovels. Don't pile it on too thick. Plan it and measure it.
Obviously, we don't get the deciding vote of what makes an overused theme overused. However, we've seen a lot of examples comparing teams to trees, ripples on ponds, or light and fire. There are ways to incorporate these ideas well, but we find it better to steer clear. We believe a good theme is creative and relates to your team and the impact they have. We also believe that identifying a strong theme helps your submission. This is something you could start right now. You could start by finding a source of inspiration. Could come from art, commercials, songs, speeches, videos, and then identify a theme within that. Then you figure out how you are going to carry that theme through your submission without overpowering the content. And then we would start writing a video script that incorporates the theme to tell your team's story.
So again, obviously we love doing the impact video, but it is worth saying again, it is optional. And what works well for us may not work well for you. So figure out your own way to do it and don't copy us blindly.
I guess that's the overriding message in all of this. Do not copy blindly. Okay, so now we get to some of the more practical parts, starting to build your submission. And this is stuff you can do now. So if you have picked a theme, you can start writing drafts of the introduction and conclusion of your essay that integrate that theme. These components, the intro and conclusion, are the parts that the judges start and finish with. Strong, memorable writing can make a huge difference to the read. Now, of course, you've got to remember the essay rules. Don't introduce new topics in the conclusion. Beware acronyms. The conclusion should echo your introduction and reinforce your content. Now, there's one thing I've added up to there. Take your time, and you don't actually need to know the specific things you're going to write about yet. You can do the intro and conclusion now.
The introduction and conclusion are the only parts of the essay where 5985 will work on full-on creative text. Although we still link the theme throughout the essay, we run out of characters if we try and do it anywhere else. We start in the off-season, and by the time we get to the final submission, we've usually written about 4 to 6 different versions with lots of tinkering.
So if you have a look up on the screen now, this is the introduction from this year's. So if you can see the different coloured text, you can see some of the ideas we're talking about. The door is always open was the theme, and it's anywhere in green is where it's mentioned. So we start and finish the intro with reference to that. The red text, the misfits, the isolated, the bullied, that is kind of the goal. That is what we're trying to achieve.
And who we are a bit.
Yeah. The yellow is the statement of goal. This is what we've done. And the blue text is our team mission. Whoops, sorry. So put that together. We've used emotional language. We've used prose rather than just straight factual text. And it is something that we think is an interesting thing to read, and hopefully something that sticks with you a bit. Same type of thing with the conclusion. There is no new information brought in, no new specifics. We wrap up and refer back to what we said in the introduction. Same type of colour code. We've got the doors mentioned twice. We've got this is what we've achieved. We've got some character work, and we've got a bit of our mission statement in. And we finish deliberately, the last sentence is something that we want to have stick with the judges. Now, we were able to write both of these, or at least the first few drafts of it, without having a complete essay, right? That is something that you can work on now, because to us, that's the thing that you really need to get right if you want to make an opinion have a strong opinion, leave a strong mark on your judges. Okay. So now we get on to everybody's worst enemy.
Yeah. So the off season is an excellent time to gather statistics and the documentation to go with them. Also a great time to reread the impact definitions and make sure you're using them correctly, and impact rubric and make sure you're meeting that stuff correctly as well. So numbers matter in an impact submission. If you're doing a lot, it's very easy to get bogged down. So what works for us is identifying our key statistics and making sure they're collectible. If your team doesn't have this information, start collecting it. If you do have data, go over the details and make sure it's all accessible and easily understood. Most importantly, don't claim things you haven't done.
Yet.
Always underclaim and make sure you have proof to back up your statistics.
For 5985, we have a master spreadsheet that we use to keep track of all of our activities, attendance, hours, and many other details. For example, this is part of our teaching program log for RoboCamps. It lets us build graphs like this. Our key stats are numbers of students, hours of class, location, and basic diversity. From this, we can build up retention patterns.
We use a similar method to track first teams started and mentored. FLL challenge teams in particular can be very confusing. There are a lot of them. So we keep a running total of teams, the number of years they're in operation. We also have a lot of oversight of teams in Wollongong, so we're able to collect the percentage of local teams in the area that we have mentored. So we also use try-booking to manage student registration in our activities. This makes any payment really easy, and more importantly, gives us access to reports and data at any time. Now, this is just one platform. There are plenty of others. So using something like this, we used to do it manually. We tried this and then never went back.
Yeah. If you are part of an event, you definitely want to get an overall audience, the number of people you provide as helpers, and if it's a first event or a community event. This helps you log volunteering hours and reach.
So we've shared a couple of spreadsheet excerpts with you now. It is not a lot of work just to put in a row that gives the basic information. This is not a report. This is just how we collect the data. Now you can see sometimes we don't have all the info, so that's what the yellow fields are on that. Those are numbers we need to confirm. So we would not be counting those until we had confirmed them. This is the whole underclaim rather than overclaim thing. Now, this also brings us into one of those things that we Aussies don't really gel with, that a lot of the Americans teams will do. And that comes down to like team diversity stats. That can be very complicated, and there are very different approaches between countries. So our approach is to record them voluntarily and anonymously where possible. Only key mentors have access to this information. And you need to pick your stats carefully, like what you're interested in. So for example, 5985 will never ask for stats on race, sexuality, or religion. The kids are free to share it, and they know they're welcome to, but it's not something we expect, and it's not something we broadcast. I know different cultures have different ideas for these type of things.
And different teams and different communities as well.
So like for us, that last point on the screen, for us, talking about disabilities is quite freely shared. When kids mention this to judges, I swear we've given a few of them a heart attack. So yeah, you may want to adjust for your own experience.
When it comes to statistics, big numbers are useful, but not always needed. The best statistics show context and measurable impact. This is one of the reasons we started gathering data on our community and country. This helps give context to the stats you provide on your impact. Graduation rates and college attendance are no-brainers, but there are others. For example,
so 4.8% of Australian STEM students have a disability. In our teaching program, it's 51%.
So displaying it like that gives context and makes the number seem meaningful. If we just said it was 51% of our students on their own, wouldn't be nowhere near as interesting. So they're going through the others. So 81% of Australian youth offenders will go on to reoffend. In our Unstoppable program, their reoffending rate was 0.
Yeah. Wollongong has 6 suburbs in the highest poverty areas in the state. As a result, 1 in 4 of our 319,000 citizens are low income. This makes removing financial barriers a high priority for the team, which led to students being able to volunteer in lieu of team fees and grant applications to cover activities in these areas. 30% of the team are from low-income backgrounds.
So you can head to your local census or statistics site to get this type of information. Okay, and then the mission accomplished statement. So what you want to do is use these stats to build a statement that defines what you have done. Outline what you've achieved in your community or area, ideally tied into your impact foundation. You're going to show progress and justify your work. So here's an example of one of ours from the essay. We've put the statement that says this is what we have done, and we've built it into the stats, we've built it into the community, and we have put our team in the context of where it lives and works. So these are all be shared later. So if you want to look at these slides, this is also on our, this is from our 2025 essay if you want to look at them.
Yeah.
Okay. Now we get to everyone's second favourite subject. Yay, documentation.
start collecting your documentation now. Even if you just have a Google Drive to dump everything in during the season, documentation storage matters.
Valuable types of information to collect is letters acknowledging that you've started or mentored a team. We recommend start getting these now, especially if you mentor a lot of teams. Notification emails sent to teams or events for getting started, like the welcome to the season email, letters from schools or politicians, social media screenshots, press coverage, flyers from events that you run, screenshots of video media, emails from event organizers and tournament directors, internet page views, and we tend to use photos if you can't get any of those other kind of documentation to back up an event or activity you've run.
So just to clarify, you don't need to do a lot with that now, but if you have a Google Drive, you see yourself, you're mentioned in an event, or if you just dump the file in there, and then you can sort it out and put it in your documentation binder when you're ready. Okay, so this is our last bit, and this is a bit more of the practical stuff. Outreach. So one of the main reasons we did this is we want to make sure that by saying this stuff now, teams have enough time to actually try some of this stuff out. Rather than, oh, that would have been nice to know 6 months ago. We want to let you know now. Now, obviously, outreach matters, and it's one of the key components of the Impact Award. However, what we find many teams misunderstand what actually matters. So you do need to measure the impact of your outreach. That's the important one. Showing up at, say, a market stall is great, but it's so much better if there's actual engagement.
So some quick facts. Starting first teams does matter. However, mentoring and sustainability are more important. Don't fall into the trap of getting hung up in the magnitude. Smaller outreach with less numbers can be more powerful. International outreach can be exciting, but it is not essential. Try it if you can. It can lead to some very interesting places. Judges love to hear about new things you've done, even if they don't have big numbers, even if they fail, but especially if you are an established team. And most importantly, consistency and sustainability matters.
Also, you can do some very powerful impact without money. The impact you make on somebody, particularly young children, you don't need bells, whistles, and massive funding. You can actually do that just by being there.
The off-season is a great way to experiment with new types of outreach, particularly in your team's area of interest. Some things we've tried and have worked for us are volunteering at a team at a first event.
We've done FLL and FRC demonstrations in a nursing home, multiple nursing homes. We tried this back with our FLL team back in 2012 for Senior Solutions, and it's been a consistent program ever since. So what, 13 years?
Yeah, the seniors love the kids. I think the only time we had low turnout was when they got to go out to the city to get ice cream at the same time we were there.
Ice cream one.
Yeah, ice cream one. Something else we've tried is technical support at FLL tournaments. Bring Lego, laptops, chargers, wheel cleaning materials, offer support and encouragement, help repair dropped robots. We have received multiple sets of flowers from teams that we have rescued from these disasters.
We are now regular what?
Yeah, hang on, sorry.
Stall holders at the Sussex Viking Festival. We don't just display things. We run hands-on Lego Robotics classes during the event, where students build and race line-following Lego Viking robot longboats.
Yeah, and in all this, what you're doing is looking for the impact and seeing if you can do more. After years of working with children with disabilities, our robotics classes now run in special education classrooms. They serve as official therapy, vocational training, and they are formally diverting youth from criminal behaviour. And this just started with, we're good at running classes for kids that have disabilities. You build on what you have.
Yeah. In terms of general advice, we suggest the following.
If you're just starting with outreach, start small. Run an after-school Lego robotics program that runs for 2 hours each week, or run something for younger classes at your school.
I know a lot of teams will run summer camps. So we tell you, expand what you do. Get your team to get creative and make games and challenges that engage returning kids. One reason we retain so many students is our unique curriculum. We're using games we've invented. So robots will play ancient board games. They'll raid tombs. They'll set off mouse traps, and they'll fight pirate ships. There's always something new to do, and it makes a big impact.
Another thing is expand your role. If you're invited to an event, provide some hand-on interaction. We provide demonstrations, but we also have numerous Lego robotics activities that attendees can interact with. Our Great Ball Machine can engage kids for hours.
Oh.
So, yeah, you
Sorry.
can, yeah.
Adjust any existing programs you have to specifically target your areas of interest. Like we target students with disabilities, and so a lot of our programs target and are specifically target students with disabilities.
And also accessible to would be a
Yes.
good one.
Yeah. Challenge the status quo. Many of the kids we work with, the sad truth was they were never considered for robotics opportunities. So we used what we had to prove just how wrong that preconception was.
Now, if you're stuck, this is one thing we want to toss out there as all this is way too complicated. Here's something simple. This is unified robotics. It's profoundly impactful, can be done, a team can be ready to compete in 6 hours of work over 6 weeks, and is a fantastic project that actually changes lives, particularly for those kids that don't have the capacity to do first. So it's a simple Lego robotics competition. We are now the Global Game Design Committee, though I think we've now got a few Citrus kids jumping on as well for that. And a competition can run in your workshop with as much or a little fanfare as you want and for a couple of hours. Now, what unified robotics does is it partners mainstream and special education students. It's using the robots, but this is a competition where the specific outcomes are compassion, empathy, and communication.
So we run a team at we ran a team out of one of the lowest SES schools in our state. At our event, one of these students was smiling and dancing away. One special education teacher told us that unified robotics was the only positive experience one of her students had ever had with mainstream students.
So we're tossing that one out there as if all of this is going over your head, give this a shot. Have a chat to us if you want to know more. So that's it for now. We hope we're able to give you some ideas that you're able to implement. Basically, I want you to remember that impact is something that takes time. Build sustainably, don't look for flashy. Also, we wanted to pass on a special piece of advice that we got from a very special mentor. Getting impact is an award, not a reward. Don't let the chase for a trophy get in the way of changing the world. So that's us done talking. So we now have questions, I believe, and you can hit us. So Piper, how are we going to do this? Okay. So hit us with the first
Sorry,
question.
give me 1 second. My mic was having difficulties.
Not a problem.
We're going to start with some of the pre-prepared questions, and then we'll move on to the questions in the chat. I'll start reading them out to you, and then you guys can answer based on that. We'll start off with, what do you think makes a strong presentation?
Well, for us, one thing we've always focused on with our presentation, or the goal of our presentation, is to either make the judges laugh or make the judges cry. So for us, along with getting the statistics of your impact and outreach out there, it's telling the stories of the people you've impacted and the effect on its community, which is a lot harder to do when you're just writing it. When you're saying it in person to the judges, you can put that emotion in there, you can put that context in there, and you can get some quite powerful responses from it.
So feeling the impact makes a powerful impact presentation, I would say.
And then if you could do anything differently, what would you change?
I actually got an answer to that one. This is like long term. I know there's a short term answer from the kids. Early on, because we were meeting in schools and like K-6 schools and things like that, the awards team was by purpose separated from the robot team. The robots had the workshop, the kids were working on awards were someplace quiet. As a result, early on, we had a bit of a split between the awards and robot component on the team. We did identify that as a problem and took steps to correct it, but it would have been nice if we hadn't had to do that, if we knew it was picked it up as a problem immediately.
Yeah.
And what with you had a short-term answer, Anita? No. Okay.
The answer from the presentation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, it's
My
okay.
book.
It's okay. Yeah.
How would you go about impact when you're from a smaller, more suburban community?
Okay. So I'll give you a start, and these guys can probably fill in. You have exactly the same approach we started with. You look at who you are, you look at where you are, and you look at what you want. So if you were in an isolated community, you would be looking at how do we deliver opportunities to people that are cut off from mainstream opportunities. It could be something as simple as these kids are having a hard time getting to an event. Let's figure out a way to get them there, which could turn into, stuff it, we're going to run our own event in this town. The needs of people in a small suburban area are very different from the ones in a large city. Target those needs. I mean, if you're going to look at the things we do, with our work, we've seen that often kids with disabilities in an isolated rural location have even less opportunities than the ones that would be in the middle of a city. Yeah, opportunities for the future. There's a whole bunch of things that could be identified. Look for where your kids are. Go start by talking to the schools, I'd say would be a good one.
Yeah.
Anything you want to add, guys?
No, pretty much the same. Although it allows you to, I guess, be able to expand a little bit more, being in an area without as many other teams. Because in the area we have a lot of other first teams, and so we've got to be careful we're not going to start taking over what they are already doing as their outreach. And so there's some teams who have no teams around them, and it's really easy for them to expand because they don't have to worry about if there's another team doing it and they'd be stepping on toes and taking over.
But that is a double-edged sword because it means you don't have support from other teams.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
The next question from here is going to be, hold on. There we go. How do you prioritize efforts and resources to ensure maximum impact?
You want that one?
Yes,
Go for it.
this was a scripted answer. So, with our resources and our efforts, any program that we already have that is impacting students already will be prioritized. If we are asked to do something else and something we have been running for many, many years is like overlapping, that new thing is not considered at that time. And it may not be for maximum impact, but it is for the better of the students we are already working with and helping through whatever.
So probably our most valuable resource is the time of our team. So we make sure that everyone is being used effectively. So we have homeschoolers, raise your hand. We've got 2 homeschoolers in this group and 1 ex-homeschooler. They are immensely valuable when it comes to running programs that run inside school hours. So we maximise that opportunity. We've got other kids that will finish school early on a certain day, so we can get them to help with one of the TAFE programs. Some kids are particularly good at teaching. We make sure that they're given the opportunity to do that. So on, a lot like those things.
Next year will be the first time we're doing an impact submission. This is from a team asking the question. So what are some things to consider for a team who has never submitted it before?
You got anything, Grace? No.
Okay.
Learn from the people that have already submitted. So if you look, because the Hall of Fame essays are published, all the winning essays are published. So as a team, like even who our team has submitted for many, many years, when I first joined the team, I was looking through all of those essays and seeing what may work and what doesn't work. And so that is a good place to start. Motto we chuck into FLL, I don't know whose motto it is, but steal from the best, invent the rest. I live by that motto. It's great.
Yeah.
I would also say, look at the things we said at the beginning. Set your culture, pick a theme, start writing, look for gaps, and give it your best shot. Once you've done it once, got some feedback, just have some fun with it, make it important. Like your team should prioritize it. It's not an also ran, it's not something where the people goes that aren't building the robot right now. It is just as important as the robot, and you're out to try and do brand new things. And most importantly, support the team while they do it.
Yeah.
Yep.
How do you identify the need for having a help desk at your FLL events?
Who here has done FLL?
Nothing works on competition day. Ever. Everybody knows that sort of from FRC. Things usually fall apart. So the need is sort of always there to have people there to help. If you look at Citrus Service, that's what we do, but for FLL. Yeah. And so we find that very, very important.
So for a while there, like we started as an FLL team back in 2010, and we're still running that team now. So we are intimately connected with the FLL program in Australia. And we were finding teams were having ultimate panic attacks over a robot that wasn't functioning. We could look at it and identify the problem in 15 seconds and fix it in another 20. Just click with the cable, or your tires are dirty, or whatever. We sort of developed the philosophy that if your team is going to fail at an FLL event, it should be for brand new spectacular reasons, not something another team can fix in under a minute's work. Yeah. So that is kind of what we came across. There were kids in tears over problems that were easily fixed. And a little kid in tears will always remember the person that came and helped them and said, it's not your fault. Everybody does this. We're going to show you how to fix it. And that is the experience that's inspiring.
Yeah. In terms of where it's most effective is if you've got an event, specifically a regional that has a lot of rookie teams, they tend to need a bit more help than, say, a nationals or international events. But when you get to that higher level of competition, it's things like we accidentally left an attachment at home, it got broke on the plane being transported over. So just providing spare pieces and stuff is often really useful.
You talked about identity of a team, but while I see how you could identify what do you want by looking at geography, teams around you, connections, etc., how does one decide identity for a team without any unique demographics?
So that was on the chat, was it? Was that the UK team?
Yes.
I did see your first message, Matt, and I was actually thinking that's a good question. Short version, there are no teams without unique demographics. There are, however, teams that haven't discovered their unique demographics. Sorry if that sounds a bit of a cliche. So let's say, okay, so we've got a team. I'll rake this open to any first team. So we got a bunch of teams that did think, oh, there's nothing real special about us. Most of them are in Scouts, right? They do Scouts Australia. There's your unique demographic. What do you know about your team members? For us, disability was there. The disability was always there. We attracted these type of people, so we just ran with it. You could have stuff like, well, if you guys are in the UK, how many FRC teams are there at the moment? No, not very many. You could go on a national identity thing. You could look at things in your area, like what is the socioeconomic status of your area? Within an hour's drive, how does that change? Where are you recruiting people from?
Yeah, if you've only got 2 FRC teams in your area, that makes you unique, right? You have...
You're pioneers.
Yeah, you're there's very little presence there, so how do you get that support for you, other first teams? That's something unique.
So we did get asked to us. Sorry, Zanetta, you were about to say something?
I was going to say, if you really can't think of anything unique, we mentioned start collecting your team statistics. Start looking at those and see if there's a particular minority in your team that you now need to target to get more involved in first. Like if you have 90% male on your team, then your unique demographic could be that there's not enough women in your area interested or who think they can do STEM. And so that could be then what you are working towards.
One thing we got asked that to us was a really weird, dodgy question. We got asked, well, we were practice questions while we were in the US. Someone asked us, how do you maintain the racial diversity in your team? And that's not something that ever really occurred to any of us. It's like, it's not really something we ever track or care about. But we are able to achieve what to that questioner was a very diverse team because we simply made it easy for anyone in the community to join. So we naturally reflected the makeup. So if your team doesn't reflect the diversity of the culture around you, there's something to work on. Have we answered your question there, mate? Sorry. I'm trying not to use cliches in this one. Come back with another question if you want us to update. Otherwise, we'll move on to the next one.
Yeah, I'll move on to the next question and then we can move back to that one. Did you show your impact video and the presentation? If so, when?
We did not. We don't typically do that.
We never have.
Yeah, we've never done that. We probably will never do that. It takes up 3 out of the 7 minutes you have. And so you're left with 4 minutes to then explain everything. And because our impact video is more on the side of here's a storytelling view of our team instead of here are all the statistics, which we have seen, it's not useful particularly. We do use lines from our video sometimes as theming in our presentation, but we do not show it.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean you shouldn't. It just means we don't.
Yes.
How does your submission change from year to year and why?
The theming.
Yep, so that's the first one. Different theme each year.
Yep.
So I've been looking at them for the longest. Should I take that one, or do you want to?
Well, one reason stuff changes, other than theming, is new projects. We normally cut it close on the character limit for our essay, which means when we've got something new that normally means something else has to go, or we have to reduce how much we talk about it, which often means restructuring everything.
When we start writing it, the introduction and conclusion are completely new, and all of the body paragraphs in our essay, we bring in the last year's essay and we write off that, making sure the words are different, and we add anything we need, we get rid of any old statistics, and then we add the new theming.
We also, you have to greatly compress. So something last year, you spent, 6 or 7 hours getting down to perfect. Congratulations, it's a new year. Now you've got to halve the characters you used. We hurt the writers. Poor Grace was sad. But yeah, you were angry. You weren't sad. You were angry. That's the type of thing. So the framework, the year-to-year framework stays pretty the same because it's the same team doing the same things. So we'll have a flow of information that doesn't change, but how we say it, where we say it, and how we link it together does change.
Yeah.
But as Zanita said, intro, conclusion, completely rewritten.
Did the judges see your impact video, or was the video used primarily for finding sponsors?
Okay, so with that, when you submit your impact video with your submitted stuff, it is given to the judges separately from you. Now you have no control whether they choose to see it or not. We hope they see it. We put a lot of work into it, 1 for the judges and 2 for the team. We use it a lot for sponsors, but we also try and make it enjoyable and different for the judges to be able to watch.
Yeah.
I will say, yeah, it works for sponsors. It's great for judges, but it's a creative project that brings most of our team together. Like this year's video, I think you did hit everybody in the team appeared once?
Everyone.
Everyone in the team appeared once. And we've been told a couple of times, probably the most powerful thing we do with it is it represents people that don't normally get represented. So there's a lot of benefits. And if the judges see it, that's great. If they don't, well, that's only one purpose that's not filled.
And the main reason we use it for sponsors is instead of giving them a 10,000 character essay and say, hey, read this is our team, just a short 3-minute video is usually enticing.
And yeah, I think the kids were keeping track of who they made cry.
What are some ways to make the most of judges coming by your pit?
So,
Do you need me to grab the small buttons?
oh yeah. So for our team, we have like a pit set up. We have little banners that we update every single year with the main statistics on it. So like the percentage of girls on our team, percentage of people with disabilities.
It's the other one.
It's fine.
Okay.
And so we also have a specific. There we go. We also have a specific group of people who are like trained to talk to the judges. And so we have a group of max-ish, supposed to be 3 people who are trained on all the things we really want to tell the judges, and they will be the main talkers.
And you have a schedule.
Yeah, and we have a pit schedule. So we always have at least one outreach, awards, non-technical person in the pits who can answer questions if the judges come by.
So don't burn out your awards team. Make sure you practice enough so nobody freaks out when the judges come around, and have the aids to memory. So the key stats and the ask me about poster.
And quite often for a lot of our students, they will do themselves up a sheet of information they want to remember that they can carry around in the pit, which is perfectly fine. Judges don't really care that you're talking from a sheet, as long as you know what you're talking about and you sound passionate about it.
I will add, again, we got over 70% of our team has a disability. A decent chunk of those disabilities will mean talking to judges is a special kind of hell. So we make sure that those people like those people like that in the awards team have got the sunflower lanyards, are paired up with someone who can talk, so the pressure is never on that one person that will struggle to do it, and they have the freedom to jump in if they wish. Does that, I think that works? Yep.
Was there anything specific that you did to involve Scouts?
A lot.
Australia.
Yeah.
We work with Scouts Australia,
Yep.
who bring first to Scouts.
Yeah, so we in Australia we run a program we call First Scouts. So I know Scouts is very different here to how it runs in the US, but we run a program that has all the local region troops ready, able to send kids to come do FLL Challenge. And we get anywhere from 4 to 6 teams running out of our workshop just in our area. We assist things with other regions as they want. There's a few in Sydney, and there's been a few in South Australia as well.
And Canberra.
And with Canberra, yep. And we've been invited. We run STEM nights where Scout troops will come visit our workshop, do Lego Robotics, get a demo. We'll visit patrol leaders training. We got asked to come to the Cubbaree, which is a cub version of a jamboree, where we were running hands-on classes for 100 kids an hour for 6 hours a day for 3 days.
Yeah.
That hurt.
So with the working with the organisation, because I just saw that pop up, we do both. With how the Scouts Australia badge system works currently, we currently have a STEM badge, and we have a liaison that kind of oversees all of the STEM outreach activities stuff within Scouts Australia that we work with. Now, we mostly work with Scouts New South Wales, but sometimes we are pulled in to work directly with Scouts Australia.
So myself and our other lead mentor are region activity leaders in South Coast and Tablelands, and we have a region commissioner for STEM activities that we work with too.
Yeah.
So basically, if anyone wants to hear more about Scouts, send us an email. We'll fill you in.
Yeah.
Moving on from that, I was just about to ask that next question. How do you manage what info to put in the executive summaries versus essay versus presentation?
So we write down a list before we start writing, maybe after the introduction and conclusion, of absolutely everything we want to mention in our impact submission. And so we make sure if it's in our executive summary, unless it's super important, it's not in the essay because that's just repeating stats, and it may be in the presentation. But we try to make sure that the summary and the essay is like the stats aren't repeated and the information is different, so they don't feel like they're reading the exact same thing.
So if we're going to talk about our teaching program in the executive summary and the essay, in the executive summary, we may talk about hours of class. In the essay, we'll talk about number of kids per week or something like that. We call it we'll mention it in both if we want to bludgeon the judges with it. We want to make absolutely sure they don't miss it. But the executive summary is for the pure stats. The essay is for setting the story, setting the framing of it, and the impact of the presentation is where you make them feel the story.
Yeah.
You think that the video is important enough to do, or would a team be okay with just doing the essay and presentation? This is a 2-part question. Is it better to have a very strong presentation and essay, or a decent enough video and a presentation?
So I'll answer officially and then you can do the follow-up. The video is optional.
Yes.
Right? We like the video because of how it brings the team together and the effect it has on the community. It is optional to the award. So now take over.
It is better for you to have a strong presentation and essay because the judges it is not officially written anywhere and it's not needed for the judges to watch your video. There were teams, as we saw this year, that were finalists and had no video, and they were still finalists. Yes. So it is definitely better to spend time and effort on presentation and essay. If your team is looking to do a video, it is a good thing to do, but it probably shouldn't be the priority like we made it.
I will say, for us, making the video a priority made our impact team better. But that's us. We're weird.
Do not, please do not copy us blindly.
That ends with a lot of late nights.
How do you coordinate people so that to ensure they are able to get to outreach events?
How do we coordinate? Was that the question? Sorry, I missed some of that.
Yes. How do you coordinate to make sure that people are available and able to go to outreach events?
So we have that's a first off a mentor question, and then a eager student question. So in 5985, because where we work and the barriers we know kids have, we have the rule that if you volunteer at one of our after school classes, which is 2 hours a week, and if you volunteer at our school holiday programs, which is 2 days each of our 4 holidays, then it costs you nothing to do FRC in Australia. So that gives us a large working pool to draw from. And we have a scheduling system where kids are rostered on to certain events, and that's where they're expected to be. That's what they do. Now, in addition, there's the expectation that you will be helping out at least one display event a term. What we'll do then is we'll put the message up on the team Slack saying, this is happening, who wants in? And we'll normally get enough people to say, yeah, we want to do it. Because a lot of these events are fun, or they give us free food. And if a child is falling behind in their commitment, then we'll have a quiet word and say, hey, you need to lift it a little bit. Oh, by the way, this is coming up. This would probably suit you well. Or, hey, you know what? We need some extra manpower to help sort the Lego kits before our next class. Why don't you put some hours in doing that? So,
Now it is worth saying as well, with the sorting Lego kits, we also make sure there is volunteering opportunities for the students on our team who can't handle being at an event or can't handle teaching with students. Their volunteering role will be setting up for the event, getting the building clean, maintaining the equipment, producing lessons, all of that kind of stuff. So we make sure there's a role that everyone can fill.
So the short answer, superior scheduling and a culture of expectation that people will contribute, which is sort of peer enforced.
How do you recruit people who are interested in awards or other non-technical aspects of FIRST?
Okay, so do we want to have Grace and Zanita swap seats? Because, yeah, swap.
Yeah.
Go, swap both. No, so both, no, Grace and Elise. I'm sorry, Zanita. Yeah, go. So these two were specifically recruited to write and present, and go for it. Take it away, kids.
We advertise our awards team at all of the demonstrations we go to. So sometimes we'll bring the trophies and stuff, which the majority of our trophies do come from Impact and all the writing and all of that. But also when we bring in our training, we will introduce everybody to the awards team and what they do and all of that. And so then we can then separate the people who are only technical and want nothing to do with awards and the people that may want to do a little bit of non-technical stuff.
So the way I found out about the team was my sister. So originally I thought it was just a robotics team. And so my sister decided to join. And then she comes back one day and she's like, oh, there's like this part where you can write awards and essays and stuff. I'm like, oh, that sounds interesting. And because my sister was drawn into the team, I became drawn into the team and joined through that.
So I have a line I use when we do the team info day, and most of the events that Zanita was just talking about. We need the writers, the artists, the presenters, the drama, we need the creative types just as much as we need the engineers and the programmers.
Now, as Anita mentioned, with our off-season, with our team training and stuff, we'll make sure everyone and in off-season training as well, we'll make sure everyone gets a small taste of awards. And quite a lot of times, there's children who think they're only interested in mechanics, and then they're suddenly writing 2 paragraphs of an essay and have been stuck behind a camera for the rest of the year.
Yeah.
Or your name is Elise and you end up running the entire media team.
So giving opportunities for them to see what it is and try it is really good.
And sometimes we have students who are interested in mechanical and awards, and sometimes we run out of space in mechanical, and so we tell them you can be on the team this year if you do awards and a little bit of mechanical, because sometimes we do not have the mentor supervision in the workshop to make sure everybody is safe.
Yeah.
That's not
Just because it seems like the questions are slowing down, final call for questions. If anybody has any more, please put them in the chat. Otherwise, I'm just going to finish the last couple that we have left. Is there a team email specifically that somebody can reach out to? I just looked on your website and was unable to find one. If one of you guys could post that in the comments, that would be fantastic.
There is a contact us link on the page. That's
You
the
want me
best way to
copy
go.
and paste that for you? Okay.
Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah, use the contact us. That's the easiest way to go. And the comment, our video was hot trash when we won from 3-2-1. Yeah, we'll go for that. Don't stress.
Your video
was better than others.
Yeah.
I do remember your video. Like,
Yeah.
they're but they're also not needed. They're fun.
Yeah.
Is a good way to look at it.
So is it someone from 1403 was asking about scouts? Yeah, send us that message. Glad to help out. Any other questions in there that we missed, guys? Anything in that one, Faith?
The last question that I just got. Oh, there's one more. How did it feel to have all of your hard work pay off?
It was like, I actually have no clue how to explain it. It was such a relief. And then we got back the day after, and because my entire role on the team has been awards, I was like, I have no clue what my role is anymore. What am I supposed to do?
But there was a lot of screaming. We have video of a whole presentation team's reaction. There was much screaming.
There was much punching as well. A few punches to the knee, very lightly, but
Yeah.
very, very, very excited.
So I think I mentioned this on Chief Delphi a little while ago. We were the first team that I'm aware of, I think the first team ever, the only team to have been finalists 3 years in a row. So it was like, we're the first team to be 2 years in a row, the only team to get it twice in a row.
First, Robotics did it this year.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. So it was terrifying. It was like, they're in it. This is the 3rd year. Does this mean we've got to come back for the 4th year? Do we got to do it again? Okay, what do we? Yeah. So it was rough.
Yeah, and it was like a little bit. I felt weird about it because this year, 4788, which is the Western Australia team, was also a finalist.
They were
and it
super
felt
good.
It felt so weird winning, having them behind us, and how happy we were when they know they might have been happy for us, but also we're probably a little, we didn't win.
Yeah, it would have been. We had double the Aussie power at Impact
Let
finalists
me
this year.
tell you, I think she screamed louder for 4788 getting Impact finalists than when we won Impact finalists.
I think I started shushing everybody when they said from Archimedes, because I went, hold on. And I literally was telling people to shush and be quiet.
She screamed louder for them than for us. Betrayal.
Okay. Yeah, we did mention photos in the valuable documents. We use photos if we can't get anything else.
Now, on the terms of that, with the document register, We also add an additional logbook, which is a practice we've carried over from 3132, where they had a 1 or half page report on every event that they did. Now that's when we'll chuck in photos from different events, but for the actual documentation register, we find more official paperwork works better than just a photo.
Photos are the last resort. So, Elise, you can get back into the camera because they have a media team question.
Sorry.
Okay. So question is, how do you organize photographers for outreach events?
Oh gosh. That's kind of like, I don't know, man. We just turn up, we're there. I mean, it's a part of our volunteering. The way that our media team volunteers at our events is photography, videoing, everything like that. We sometimes don't have all of our media team show up, so we'll grab a couple of our other students, like our mechanical students that are slightly media event trained, and we'll be like, hey, you free to film some things for me right now? And then they just get sucked into it. They love it. They love us. We're great.
You also organise a shot list
Yes.
before events.
We do. We spend too long on shot lists that they're good actually. Shot lists are really great for events. I love and adore ours. Yeah, thank you.
We also make sure after we had a few disasters, we also now enforce you will review your footage at multiple times during the day.
Yeah. Oh, and we color coded all our equipment because we kept losing it a lot. Lens caps, bright fluoro colors now.
Yes.
I love it.
Yeah. So what other questions have we got?
Does working towards impact by extension help a team's chance in other awards?
It can. I think engineering inspiration has some non-technical, and so definitely working on impact will help with that, and it can help with some
GP?
Yeah, GP, some other team attribute awards.
I would say also the biggest part of it is it helps you get confident about what you do. Having to go over everything you do with a fine-tooth comb and find the statistics and write it out and do a presentation on it means that when you come to talk to those people, the judges that come around to your pit or other teams that come around to your pit, your students are a lot more confident in the information they're saying.
We do also have a policy where the awards people know enough about the robot to be dangerous, and we help produce the engineering logbook so that they are part of that as well. So the practice you do for talking to judges in the pit is useful regardless of what you're talking to them about. I think, so answer, yes.
Yes.
And then quick question to bring back to the one that was asked before that was, how many photographers do you guys have?
So we have about 3 or 4 main ones, and then we have again about 3 or 4 like backup people that are, if they're at events and we need them, they will help out. But sometimes at our events we will only have one media person there, so our mentors will help out a bit. It just depends on where we're at, what we're doing.
We have a pretty deep media capacity.
Yeah, pretty good.
So we'll do things like, we do have to set rules. Like, no matter how good you are, you think you are, you will not try and take video with a handheld camera.
Please no.
A tripod or gimbal. We also don't have a lot of equipment. Basically, everything we do is basically shot on 2 Canon DSLR cameras, old ones. And then any editing we do is on a free copy of DaVinci. So, we are not well equipped by any stretch of the imagination.
We try our best though.
What do you think makes Australian teams different that they do so much outreach? How are there so many Australian Hall of Fame teams?
So, don't know how there's so many.
I do.
Yeah.
I do. I know why.
Because we're amazing. Sorry.
That's it. So, first, I think number one, like the primary reason is, first in Australia was kicked off by the Heimlich family, particularly Mike and Luann. Now, Luann is currently running NorCal, I think, is that what you call NorCal, whatever. But every one of those teams from that era has benefited, particularly from Mike and Luann and Sarah and Jay. Their approach, they were 31, 32, and that influence has come down to all of us in some way. Now, I can't speak for Barker because I don't know enough about how they worked, but we have been heavily, heavily influenced from the very beginning in our approach to all of this by those people. And I think that's then gone on because people are looking at what we're doing and copying that. So that it comes down to where things started. Then, Zanita?
Another thing that we mentioned earlier is that we have more space to expand. Look at California. There's like 250 teams in like just California. We have barely 40 in the entirety of our country. We only have one regional, and so we are able to kind of just push
Spread out.
Spread, expand, and all of that. So,
There's also a lot of collaboration between the teams and a lot of support between the teams.
So I'll give you one example of that one. So we give workshop space to another team called the Embers. They want to do their own teaching program. So they could run something that competes with us. But what we did was we organised something with them. We figured it out. They are running a junior Robo Club. They deal with the kids under 7. We deal with the kids above 7. And so we're able to share locations, share venues, and actually collaborate and build off each other rather than compete directly. So yeah, that attitude is very prevalent. Like just last week, we were in Sydney with the emus, sharing a major opportunity, and it was a question of which robot goes on display, and they were just looking, okay, this is the best option. Hey, you guys put your robot on, we'll run this. There was no ego involved. There was no, what's the best one for any team? It was just, what's the best for everybody?
And on that note, when Zanita said earlier, like with how we organise stuff, if we can't run something, we'll say we can't run it this time. A lot of the time we will put it up on to the First Australia teams and say, we have this opportunity, is anyone available? Does anyone want to do it? And
so we push opportunities to other Australian teams when we can't do it, and they push them to us. So it's a little bit easier for us on the east side of Australia because there's a little bit more teams here, whereas there's not as many over in Perth and Western Australia. So they have a little bit more of a hard time.
You think that answers the question?
I would say so. And then a couple of the last questions here. What is the best way to sort the impact documentation entries? And should there be a different line in the documentation for each impact definition?
Let me do a summary
Yeah.
first. Okay, so our impact binder, now that you're only allowed to have one and it's measured in inches, so our documentation consists of the documentation register, like the form and then the documents itself, and then what we call the binder, which is a series of hopefully one-page reports on everything we've done up to, I think it's the last 3 years, is it
4
at the
years.
moment? 3-4 years, something like that. Plus some highlights and a summary sheet. So there's a one-pager at the beginning of that. So when we sort all of that, the primary sorting is it a highlight report, which stands up on top? After that, it's by date.
Yeah, and then with the document register, sorry to talk over the top of you, Zanita.
I just thought it was most recent.
Is if an event falls under multiple definitions, say we've started and mentored a team and we have a letter from them acknowledging that we started and mentored, we will put the letter in once, but we will put in the table of contents, we will put started, mentored in as two separate things referring to the same page of documentation.
Yep.
So that's just how we do it. Sorry, you go.
You're good. You can finish it.
So You can. I have also seen teams have like started and mentored on the same line in the document register. Both way works. It's just whatever you find easiest to manage.
Our approach is if the judges are going to look at this quickly, we want each line to be easy to read and understand. So if it's only got one word explaining what it's for, it's easier to read quickly.
And then one of the final questions from the chat here, does your awards team overlap with fundraising and grants?
Sort of. A lot of our grants are like written by our mentors and then reviewed by the awards team. We don't usually have the students on the awards team writing grant applications because that is an area where adults know what the adults are looking for.
However, we've had multiple of the bigger ones where the awards team is, we've got to, okay guys, here's the question we need to answer. How do we answer it on the grant application?
Yeah.
So there is a fair bit of overlap, yeah.
And fundraising is kind of just the whole team.
Yes. Yeah.
What's our stats this year?
For what?
The dollars, cents per dollar?
Oh, 89.
Yeah.
89 cents of every dollar we spend comes from our teaching program.
Yeah.
That's not fundraising. That's just the teaching
So
program.
yeah, with the fundraising, we make sure all students are involved, not just the awards team, so it's not separated. Again, that's part of team culture. With the grant things as well, to add on to what Zanita said, sometimes with certain grants for people you're working for example, we were looking at getting a grant to work with the Unstoppable team, which is keeping youth out, diversion of youth from criminal behaviour. There's some parts of those grants and some statistics in the grants that students are not allowed to look at that come directly from the school and the kids involved in the grant and the team. The diversion from criminal behaviour. So there's review and suggestions, but not entirely.
I will say too, this team is completely self-funded, and the situation for sponsors in Australia is very, very different to what you get in the US. So our best sponsor is Propel Technologies. They are right there. They give us $6,000 roughly a term to run a free all-girls robotics class on a Friday.
Yeah.
And that is the most amount of money we get from anybody. Everything else I said, what Zanita was saying, like 90% of what the team spends comes from where the kids work.
Yeah. The money Propel gives us is not used for our FRC team. It does not go to building a robot or like funding anything our team does for FRC. It goes straight to the class and it stays in the class and it funds that class so that we do not have to charge the students who attend so that they can access robotics and STEM.
Did I see one question somewhere about Lego education activities? Did I see a team asking about it? Is that there, Piper?
Yes, that is one of them. There's kind of two questions on that one. How to craft impactful Lego education experiences, and can you share your Lego education activities?
So on the sharing, we have a couple that we have shared, like
There's 4 videos up on the YouTube channel.
yeah, and then there's also the ones we've released through Unified, which are a little bit different to what we would normally run in a class.
Yep.
Impact.
Yeah. I think the biggest part of making them impactful is making them different. For a lot of the activities, being able to interact with your final product is what keeps the kids engaged. Especially if it's like, we've gotten some kids to do some very complex coding because they get to play a board game with the robots. And the end product is what keeps them engaged.
Yeah.
So to answer Destroyer Prime, I just saw that pop up. Self-funded is our team raises the money to pay for the activity. The kids themselves pay nothing.
Yeah.
Right, so we have an activity called Alive. So if you know what a Tamagotchi is, you know where this is going. So the kids have to design a critter of some kind, and then we're teaching essentially 7-year-olds how state machines work, moving through the critter being happy, sad, alive, dead, hungry, sick. So if it's left alone for long enough, it throws a tantrum and shuts down. We have another game called Battleship based on the old board game. So the beginners in that activity are given instructions on how to build a Lego catapult. They shoot a ball and they've got to sink a ship. The ship is a bit of paper on the ground with a loaded mousetrap or two on it. And they sink a ship by setting off all the mousetraps. So the excitement of random violence definitely is appealing. But if we get to the advanced mad engineers, we say there are no instructions. Design your own launcher. And if we're going to get really complicated, we'll say, right, here's the boats you're protecting. You have to shoot over those to get to the boats on the other side. So every activity we do has that scalable nature.
And another thing we do that makes them impactful, I think, is that they're relevant. Like Battleship, what was the other one you mentioned?
Alive.
When we tell kids what they're doing, they can go, oh, I've played that board game and now I'm making it a robot. So they feel a connection, kind of, to what they're doing. Like we do robot sumo in our introduction class. So the kids go, oh, I want to fight a robot. And so
I will say, I saw someone mention, we did mention Citrus before. Years ago, we had Citrus 118 and I think Hawaii kids come out to Australia for a Mentors Without Borders thing. And I had a year 8 kid sit in the audience with me listening to somebody talk about state machine programming and FRC. And I saw his eyes go wide and he turned to me and said, I actually understand what he's talking about. And he'd never done programming before, like on that level, but he understood the concepts. So sort of like we're introducing this stuff by stealth and having fun with it.
And if you're stuck for ideas, feel free to send us an email as well. We're happy to help you come up with some of your own.
we have 128 different ideas that could help you change so they work for your students and where you're putting them.
Yeah.
Was there anything else that's come through?
How would you define
How do you divide your sponsored budget?
Say that again.
How do you divide your sponsor budget?
Sorry,
Okay.
my internet might be dying a little bit. How do you divide your sponsor budget?
Okay, so the sponsor budget is very, very small. Right, most of what the team makes comes from these guys running the after-school classes and things like that. So we will see it's gotten so big. Well, we'll see up to 250 kids a week in these programs, and they'll register for a 10-week term at a time. That's why we get such huge numbers. Sponsor budget is normally delivered to a specific purpose. It's decided for us. So like we have one sponsor that was not interested in paying anything that would keep us going year to year. He specifically said, I want you to come to me if there's something new you want to do. I want to expand your capabilities. So he was the one that paid for our first brushless motors. Propel paid for the girls in STEM opportunities.
PPM.
Safety, yeah.
No, PPM, they paid for us to be able to get a robot trolley that we could take onto the field. So it's very specific, very small, and often decided for us.
Yeah. As to how we spend money, because we're, again, independent community team, we've got to pay our own insurance, we've got to pay some rent on the building, we've got to cover everything. So basically we budget, we do a budget, and when the kids are building the robot, if they want to design a system, they've got to come to the mentors with a proposal of this is how much it's going to cost, this is why we think it's worth doing, and they've got to justify that. So like the mentors control the money, but the kids control the budget proposals.
And that is, I think, one way the mentors prepare us for the workforce. Once you get to a workforce, if you're in like a position like that, when you come and ask for something, you need to have a full proposal of why you want it, how much it costs and all of that. And so that's sort of one way they prepare us for the future, which is kind of really good.
What the heck do we do now?
Yes.
So on that note, we've already established this. We want to keep making videos. So yeah, Elise is not letting go of her power so easily. We're going to be making some more videos. We're going to keep going for the award stuff. Hopefully going to be doing, if this has been useful, we'll be doing more sessions like this. Yeah.
Yeah. We are definitely...
Go.
I don't know if Piper's internet has died or if they're
I think
being
I'm still here.
yeah.
Okay.
So is there any other questions?
Or are we out of time?
I mean, if you guys still want to continue answering some of the questions that the team sent in previously, we can keep going on that. We have some that you guys haven't answered in a similar form, but we could also just cut it here as we've answered most of the chat questions and a good amount of the other questions as well.
If you're happy to keep going, we're happy to keep going.
I mean, I am all good. I don't have anything going on tomorrow morning, so yeah.
Yep. But it's only middle of the day for us.
Hell. Yeah, I think one of the ones that is kind of important, especially for teams, is how do you ensure impact was sustainable and long term?
So they'll take that one for the start, and then Zanita can take it from there. When we started the team, we built it on the idea that it will cost you nothing to take part if you do the volunteer work, because so many of our teams are, 30% of our team's low income. We got a ton of homeschoolers. We got a ton of families that have multiple siblings on the team. If we were charging per person, our team numbers would probably halve. So we built into it from the very beginning that the expectation that you will pay with child labour instead of money. And it turns out something like high 90% of everyone that's come through the team has taken that path. Even the families that could afford to pay a team fee chose not to. A big benefit of doing this is, like, we've had kids go up and get cadetships at Blue Scope Steel or scholarships, and they've been able to point to this and say, I have been teaching STEM to other kids for 7 years. I've done this, and it makes a huge difference. Yeah, so child labour builds character. So you saying, Zanetta?
Another thing is just make sure the students on your team or the people who are running it are passionate about what you're doing. Because if, like, we have programs that students on our team suggested. So like our Rocketing Girls program, it's a free all-girls class that teaches Lego robotics. That was suggested and brought to us by a student. And so now, like, we have students on our team from that class, even when the original students that made the program have aged out. There are still students that come from that class and are still very, very eager to keep the program running because they came from it. And so it's like, it's part of them as a person
Yeah. So I would also say that comes back to what we were saying with the culture. Who are you? What do you want? Now, we did a practical inclusion conference. We do has come back to shape who we are. So like the line from the presentation that Anita said, the disabled, the dismissed, the refugees, the immigrants, that is who we are. And those are the programs that interest the kids because that's who they are. So if you have that element of personal investment, that is the primary thing. And then it's all logistics.
Yeah.
So we have our teaching program. It runs at schools, after school. So usually K to 6 schools, a couple of high schools. In Australia, that's year 7 to 12. And the way it's rigged up is the schools are happy to have us there because we're providing STEM extension and we're more fun than standard after school care. But if the school decides they don't want us there anymore, not a big deal, we move on to the next one. We've got a list of schools that are more than happy to have us around. And for a while there, we were actually trading workshop space. Like we got a basement room in a K to 6 school in exchange for us running a free Lego robotics program for that school, taking them through the FLL. So if you build that flexibility and don't put all your eggs in one basket, you have that ability.
Let me go back to the list. I'm on my laptop on vacation, so it's.
Oh, you got some? Yeah.
I've got the list up if that's easier.
Well, hang on, someone's just posted a question down the bottom here. So while you're looking at that, we'll deal with this one. When it comes to working on Lego-based outreach specifically, how do you build up lesson plans? And how would you make them specifically to accommodate students who speak various languages?
On that one, we make sure, do you want to find one of the lesson slides? We make sure that our lessons accommodate to different learning styles. So whenever we're doing it, we have a visual, so let's say with coding, we have written out what the coding needs to be, we have an image of what their code should look like, and we tell them verbally. Now, yeah, that's a good one to share. Now, we have run classes for students speaking other languages. We had some team members on our team who were able to translate what we had into, I believe it was Mandarin. And we've also worked with some students in Mauritania who only spoke Arabic and French. So if you have a look, this is an example of one of our teaching slides. Most of the time, having an image up works really well, even if there's a language barrier.
So when we have a class, we'll do 3 things. The picture on the left is what the code should look like. The text on the right is where they find it. And somebody will be up the front describing what's happening as well. So we cater to audio and we cater to different ways of intaking the information. We've also been able to do this for children with vision issues. We've had a few legally blind students. Magnifier, looking at this, has proven more than effective in having them be able to participate. And we've had a few deaf students as well. And a lot of the time that's resolved by me putting one of those special mics around my neck that's then picked up by whatever the kid is using, or translator or something like that. Translator apps are also quite useful.
Yeah. In terms of building a lesson plan, that one's a bit more complicated. What we'll normally do is if there's a game or an activity or a skill the kids have asked to learn, we'll start looking at, okay, how do we translate that into something you could do? So recently, a lot of the students at our classes have been asking for skills to do FLL, so how to better use the gyro sensor, how to pick up loops. So we looked at that and said, okay, how can we make this fun? So what we did is we had a very old game called Cops and Robbers that was basically chasing robots and playing tag.
So Faith adapted that.
Into they now have to rob a bank. They've got to use the gyro sensor to find their way into the bank, and then they've got to use an arm to pick up the loot or money or treasure from the bank and then escape before they can set off the alarm. So we do that with a lot of lessons. In terms of like getting the instructions and making the code, because a lot of our kids have come from the teaching program, most of them already have knowledge of how the Lego Robotics program and build works.
So we build instructions in Bricklink Studio.
Yeah,
I think.
LegoStud.io. So they'll often build a robot to do the challenge, and then that'll go through a couple of modifications before one of them CADs it up in Lego CAD and then uses that to generate instructions.
So what's been your favourite activities, Anita?
Favorite activity?
Yeah, to do in teaching program or to teach or do.
Last year we created the Olympics sort of thing, and so there was a whole bunch of different activities that we gave them to complete, and so for each activity they had to build and program and design like an entirely new robot to do it. So we had like basketball, rowing, gymnastics,
So
archery, shot put.
Rapid builds,
Yeah.
design, and then move on to the next robot.
Yeah, and
That's always fun. Yeah.
that was good for developing skills and resilience and all of that sort of stuff. Yeah.
So another question we got is, how did your team decide the best tone to convey during your presentation? Some teams go for a more professional approach, others use more emotion. How should teams go about choosing this tone?
We choose it based on basically our team.
No, they're talking about the presentation.
Yes.
Okay, fine. Go on.
Based on our team, and so we like the teams that dress up and like not dress up, but like put on a suit and a tie. We're not like that. That would rule off like 90% of our team from being presenters if we were to do that, and so we do not. We go in our uniform and everything, and so for the tone of the presentation, we also base it around our team and the students in the room. When we first choose our presenters or have our presenters, we figure out their strong points in speaking. And so for me as a presenter, I was better at conveying the statistics and the emotion. And so when we got to it, we put statistics and emotion and all of that. And yeah, we base it off what our team is best at conveying. And so that changes. If we have an entirely new group of presenters that are going into the room, the way we choose to convey the presentation and the tone is changed.
Yeah.
I'll say the overall approach too. I've seen quite a few where it's very formal language, almost like a business pitch. That's never been us. In fact, early on, one of our early feedbacks was the energy of your presentation overwhelmed the content.
Yeah.
Whoops.
Yeah.
So we go for the lively and the energetic and the emotional, not the overly formal.
Yeah.
That may be an Australian thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But for some teams, I have seen the formal pulled off fantastically. So again, linking back to what Zanita said, look at who's in your team, look at your strong points. The comment we got about the energy overwhelming the content, that's one thing you do have to be careful of no matter what way you do it. If the message of your presentation is getting lost in the way you're presenting, you don't want it. One way that we check that is we get parents in to be our test audience as we're developing, and if they're not understanding what's going on or they're getting the wrong tone or vibes from it, we mark that and we go, okay, this needs to change.
Yeah.
Personally, I think an overly professional approach makes it a lot harder to convey the actual personal impact of the program.
Yeah. Another thing we said earlier with the presentation is we usually go for crying or laughing. And so back in 2019, when we had a completely different presentation team, we went for laughing.
Yeah. It was Yeah, I experienced the great tonal shift. And yeah, I was the only remaining presenter from like that 2019 over to like when we started to go 2022, when we started to go for the more emotional. And the thing was, we developed over time. You may start with super serious and then go, hang on, we're not getting the impact that we want. Or you may start with a game show theme or a court case, or I've seen teams do exploration through the jungle and go, okay, this worked really well this year, but does this still convey what we want it to do for the next season?
Yeah.
Me and Haley are deliberating. One moment.
Scroll through. Let me see.
Only one I can.
There was one other question. How'd you get a TV to Worlds?
As we mentioned in our little thingy, our TV is much bigger in Australia, but it is bubble wrapped, it is wrapped in towels, it's wrapped in quilts, and it is put in a suitcase wrapped in fragile tape.
And still TSA managed to break it one year.
So with that, I'm in charge of making sure it survives the trip. We at Worlds we use a computer monitor that has a detachable stand.
Yes.
The screen is as big as 1/2 of a hard shell suitcase, which is like the maximum size limit you can take on. And what we did is we put foam padding on either side of the screen, wrapped it in 3 or 4 layers of bubble wrap. Wrapped it in quilts and then put more foam in again, and then made sure there was nothing hard or like robot parts in the suitcase that could potentially break it if it is damaged.
Yeah. And so, yeah, with that, we can't guarantee like it has been broken before. And we sit on the side of the plane and we watch them and we go, oh, there's the 3D printer. Oh, there's the monitor. Look at that. That's our limelights.
Yeah. And I will say we always have a backup. In our first couple of years doing presentation, when we didn't have the ability to transport a monitor or our monitor to transport, what we do is we just got a laptop and moved ourselves a bit closer to the judges so they could see the screen. So if disaster strikes, we always have a way to work around as well.
We have like 5 laptops that can run the presentation.
I mean, if you were desperate, if you had contacts wherever you were going, you could always ask to borrow a monitor as well. But knowing what we've got to work with does make a difference.
Yeah. I do also believe we did look at it one year, you can hire screens from places like Best Buy and stuff like that in the US. A bit on the pricey end, but if you don't have the ability to transport one, that works pretty well.
There was also more stress than we wanted to deal with at the time. So I guess while Haley and Co are still deliberating, for anyone that's still actually paying attention, just do remember what we were trying to do here, which is you've still got quite a few months to try some things out. And honestly, it does not matter if it fails. You never know where this stuff is going to take you.
For context, our FLL team started when my brother saw an ad in the Lego Club magazine, and they were like, "Oh, cool! A fun thing we can do with homeschoolers." 15 years later, I can't escape Lego. I can't escape robotics. This is my life now. I'm trapped.
Now that's a you question, Zanette.
So we don't do impact scouting, mainly because we don't have time.
It would stress the heck out of you.
Yeah, and also then when they're announcing impact finalists and all of that, I'd be sitting there like, okay, so there was this one team and they said blah, 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 blah. But if there is teams that come around to impact scout us, I always talk to them about their outreach and stuff because I think it's cool to notice. But yeah, if you see how like stressed we are, like when they announced Impact finalists for the last 3 years, I've been there. I go and read every single finalist essay and I go, so what are our chances against these guys? And that's what I've done every single time. I read at the events we go to, I go and see how many of the essays I can actually read. And so obviously it's easier at champs because everyone's essays are published already.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I read a lot of essays and I
So-
stress myself out.
Impact exchanges are a lot better.
Oh yeah, we do impact exchanges. Yes.
That we like those. Those are good.
Yeah, we started doing one at with Berkelium. They set it up at East Bay, and that's been a lot of fun. And we've been able to help and support other teams doing that. To add on to the impact scouting at Worlds, we had a very small crew of people able to come, and again, a lot of them have disabilities, which means they can't be on 100% of the time. So a lot of them will tend not to do the walk around pit and talk to other teams because they're so exhausted by doing pits, doing awards, doing scouting. So we love talking to other teams. We have trouble seeking them out sometimes though.
What was I going to say?
Does that help, Roderick? Sorry, Haley. Yep.
Um, um, I think, I guess it depends on where you sit in the process. Like, I think what I have always tried to get out of it is like the ability to talk to people and engage in that. Because before, I would have never stood in front of a bunch of politicians and read out our presentation. I would have never walked into a room where I know people's whole job is to judge me. But now I'm here and I have learnt a lot and it's been a really remarkable experience. My very first year on the team, very first competition, I was an impact presenter. And so I was so stressed by the whole thing and I could not physically cope. I had a panic attack at that competition. And so now I no longer have panic attacks and I actually cope a little bit better. My coping mechanism is not coping. So focus, sort of what I would say is the skills you learn. So the essay writing, the conveying information to others and all of that stuff. Communication.
Yeah.
Elise, you want to?
And the people you meet, amazing people, meet great people.
I-
They're all great.
I would say, looking on as a mentor, the biggest thing to prioritize in impact is how it makes you powerful, right? I've got kids here who literally have been told, you've reached your capacity at school and we don't expect anything more from you, right? And these are the kids that are now getting up in front of the world, in front of other teams. They are having an impact that is beyond measurable for other kids. I've got kids here that never thought that they'd be able to do any of this. Now they can. I've got kids with ASD level 2 that have been told or never expected to be able to do anything social skills wise. These are some of the kids up the front leading a classroom full of other kids wearing noise cancelling headphones themselves. So you've got kids that are role models, kids that are powerful, and it's got nothing to do with building the robot. It's all about what they're doing in impact. The robot helps, but the most powerful thing is the power you have on others.
And from my perspective, going from a student to a mentor, a lot of the kids don't realize the effects you have. And I'm still coming to terms with some of it. As we said, one of our program is diverting kids from criminal behavior. And like I worked with the kids. I was teaching them FRC. I didn't know how much of an impact I had on one of them until their foster parent came up to me at an event in tears saying, how do I keep my daughter doing this? She's talking to me. And she was ASD nonverbal, and she'd been with him for multiple years, and me teaching her robotics once a week had this massive, absolutely massive impact on her, and completely turned her life around. And you don't realize.
We have a lot of stories like this. Everyone here does, and they're all slightly tearing up thinking about it. So, when I mentioned before about the reoffending rate dropping to 0, the school we work at with the Unstoppable program is kids that are from backgrounds of trauma, abuse, neglect, addiction. Right? These kids these are the kids, they don't do mainstream school, they can't, these are the kids that are written off as criminals. Most of them are already in the justice system. 81% of Australian youth that offend, are in the juvenile system, will reoffend. The core group, we've been working with them for 3 years. We didn't know. The school gave us a report just before Worlds. The reoffending rate in the group that did FRC was 0.
And there were multiple kids in that group who had multiple offenders and had been to jail.
And that's it. That's it. The thing you realize is the power you have to change the world. I know it sounds a bit trite, but once you get neck deep in this stuff, you realize they're not kidding. You actually can. So I guess if anyone's still actually paying attention and you're not all asleep, if you want to do well at Impact, our single bit of advice is tell the story. Tell the real, whole, ugly story, and that's how you will do well. Awesome.
Thank you all for coming.
Thanks. I was gonna say, Hale, when you get that ready, can you do a community announcement for that? For a link for the people that have asked for it already.